4 years ago, a number of local sports clubs came together to look at ways in which they could work together better. These clubs operate from multiple buildings dotted around the park, and it's fairly obvious that a move towards a centralised hub would be a long-term aspiration. So instead they developed some short-term goals to improve their inter-club communications, develop strategic plans, and later in the year will be starting a multi-sport holiday programme. But the biggest tangible outcome of their collaboration and communication was 12 months ago, when the sports centre, comprised of 4 squash courts and 4 tennis courts, came back into council after 10 years as a contracted site. The clubs had noted a gradual decrease in facility use over time, and some of the facilities required significant upgrade for that use to improve. This led to an investment from the Kaipatiki Local Board of just over $200,000 into resurfacing the old tennis courts, replace them with a multi-sport offering, to improve drainage, fencing and equipment. Also included the installation of a new automated booking system linked to centre access and automated lighting. Auckland Council appointed a part-time centre manager tasked with overseeing the resurfacing project, implementing that booking system and acting as a liaison to ensure the best possible use and activation of all facilities.
So here we are at Shepherd's Park, the heart of the Beach Haven community, and there are a number of sporting facilities here. We have the futsal, the hockey and squash and bowls and the tennis located here at the Beach Haven Tennis Centre. Behind me there are the football fields where in the summer cricket is also played, as well as touch, sevens and other sports like frisbee as well. To my left there's the playground where our younger folk play, as well as a creche and a community centre, and also around Beach Haven itself and around Shepherd's Park there are a number of coastal walkways which allow us dog walking and also general recreational users. So basically Shepherd's Park here is the heart of the community where lots of people use the facilities for recreation.
The Beach Haven Leisure Centre is really an innovative project and partnering up with the Birkenhead Football Club. From a football point of view, Birkenhead Football Club is the first of its kind in the country that's kind of seen this opportunity and has used it to engage with their members and local community. Birkenhead Football Club, they've got a futsal coordinator which also ties in with what the Federation set up in our quality club mark, level 2. It's also great to get other kids involved and more senior students involved in actually having that level of responsibility in helping to manage and coach those kids.
Community centre here is really important to Birkenhead United for a number of reasons. And the first reason really is where we're based. So the club here is based in Shepherd's Park at the end of a peninsula. We're not near a main thoroughfare, and that means it can be quite difficult to try and attract players to us. And so the futsal facility here gives us a differential, and that's fantastic. The other thing is that it is a long-term investment in football in New Zealand and in the club. So we're looking to develop our depth and to develop our player skills, and this gives us the perfect vehicle to do that. And look, that leads into the training facilities. Obviously with a club that's growing very quickly, we are outstripping the ability of 4 grass fields and a training pitch to supply enough training facilities. It's really important. Look, the last reason, and it might just be the most important, is that our club doesn't have a lot of money. We're in a socio-economic area here in Beach Haven and Birkdale that isn't awash with money, and people don't have a lot of disposable income. So one of our values is to make football affordable, but we still want to be successful. And to do that, we've simply got to be innovative. We've got to think outside the square to keep ahead of our opposition and to keep achieving the objectives that we've set for ourselves, which are to be the leading football club in New Zealand. So the futsal centre here, really important step, both on a short-term and a long-term basis, to helping us achieve that.
For us, one of the main issues in the Beach Haven Birkdale area was a lack of space to play hockey. Traditionally, most people have had to come over here to Albany, which 2 years ago when we reviewed it, we had no school teams, primary school teams entering our competitions. So having the turf at Beach Haven Sports Complex has allowed us to engage with those children and engage with those schools and get people active outside of school time.
So traditionally the idea of multi-sport, I think, immediately conjures up a sort of bewildering array of intersecting lines, and I'm sure that for many people the original concept when floated, that's what came into their minds. What was really interesting here was watching Auckland Council work with the club and with the other sports to actually come up with a design that I think possibly is quite groundbreaking. And the actual result that we've got are 3 sports on the same turf, but actually without lines intersecting in all but a very few necessary places, and that really, really has helped.
The multi-sport nature of the facility means that hockey, futsal, tennis all had to make some concessions and some compromises to come up with a facility that for us would allow top-level tennis to be played on a surface that's suitable, and still for futsal lines to be marked out so that we could play futsal in an appropriate facility and something that's designed specifically for futsal. So that's been great. There's other concessions that have been made and other great design plans or thinking. One of those is the storage area for the tennis nets, so that they don't get damaged. There's also some extra fencing so that above the goals that you're not always chasing the futsal over and above the top of the goal. I think the overall nets down the middle of the courts to allow for competitive futsal to be played is a great advantage. So yeah, look, very happy with the consultation. I think we've got a great facility as a result for not just for futsal, but for multi-sport purposes.
There's 4 tennis courts that are absolutely flooded because it's just been raining for the past 2 hours. But yet, just behind me here, we've got a bunch of kids that are absolutely enjoying their Thursday afternoon, busy playing a game of futsal. But yet, people can come and have a game of tennis right after. I know personally, when I'm driving past various facilities, it's almost heartbreaking to see such well-developed facilities and then there's barely anyone on it.
We think the design of the turf there at Beachhaven has worked really well. Although we had to have dotted lines for the circles, it's not a big deal because it actually doesn't interfere with the tennis, which is the primary use there. So we'd hate to be interrupting other sports. So for us, it works out really well.
So a partnership was formed with Squash New Zealand, who had invested significant money over a number of years in their ice squash program. We realised the software could be reconfigured to meet not only our squash needs, but also our outdoor court needs. It would look after members, pay-to-play access, as well as floodlight automation. A key outcome of installing the booking software is the centre is now fully automated and no longer requires staff on site. This allows funds to be saved that can be reinvested back into the much needed facility improvements. This also results in a better use of centre manager time, as that time can be spent activating the space, promoting programs, encouraging casual use of the facility and planning for those facility improvements.
We had to take into account the fact that it was a multi-use facility. That required some specific programming changes to enable us to do things like court aggregation, which is essentially saying that if you booked out a futsal court, you in effect took out, say, 2 tennis courts.
So where I think Auckland Council really got this right was in recognising that this was a journey that they needed to take the club along with them. No sense of imposition would have worked, grudging submission would have been a disaster. So the way that the project manager approached this was to ensure that the club was fully engaged in the dialogue, and also took time to go back, to take time to take club members out to similar facilities, to go back over things that they weren't comfortable about or didn't understand. And that's a partnership approach, because this could have been a disaster if the people within that tennis club felt that this was somehow being imposed on them, either didn't fully understand it or really didn't like the idea.
We had about 60 or so members come down to volunteer their time, give up training, along with some members from the tennis club, and they had a good turnout there to help us rip up the turf. And that's by no means an easy task, and they stuck at it and got the job done. And the reason for that was simply cost saving. It's an expensive project. We were able to contribute some man hours to enable 10 grand to be saved, which we could then put into the purchase and development of some futsal goals. So that's fantastic.
So I guess one of the things we're really focused on in terms of our club support is try not to get your customer to fit your model. No business in the world is going to work if you try and tailor your customer to fit your idea of what the model should be. We have to be led by the customer. So in terms of how people use their sport, how people use their recreation time, we have to recognise that the days of spending a whole weekend in one club is probably gone for most and many people. So this opportunity where people can take tennis in bite-sized chunks, can get involved in playing futsal, one part of the family could be playing one activity, another could be hitting tennis balls. It's got to be the way of the future, and it's got to be something that our tennis clubs think is a good possible lever and mechanism for attracting new members, whatever the word member in a 2015-2020 context actually means.
The partnership between the council and the club plays on each other's strengths. So we've got 50-something years of delivering football programs. We've got a lot of frameworks and coaching expertise in place. We've got a large membership which is growing. So that's our strength. We don't have the financial ability or the expertise to invest in the facilities here, which the council has very kindly done for us. So that's the first level of synergy. The second thing is that we're both pulling in the same direction. So as our program grows, the profitability for the council increases and improves, and as the program grows, so too does our free cash flow or profit that we make from this as well. So I think that's really important to note, that we are both pulling in the same direction and there's mutual benefit there.
Harbour Hockey would certainly support future projects in local communities that meant we had access to a facility that we could deliver primary school and intermediate school hockey on. We would be able to justify having a full-size turf in Beachhaven and Birkdale at the moment, so it gives us access to that community.
Yeah, the future plans for the program delivery here, perhaps if we just start with the genesis of it, we started out with 25 kids. It was wet, rainy, and yet still we've doubled our numbers in the second league season, so that's been fantastic. We expect that now with summer coming on, outdoor facility, that we're going to go to triple the original number. We may well even get to quadruple by the time we add in our adult leagues, which are kicking off as well. That's obviously a great alternative for people playing summer sevens or something they can mix in as well. And a lot of the youth teams here are planning to play futsal over the summer to keep the touch and keep the fitness. So that's great.
One of the things I think all sports clubs are having to grapple with is that the world of 2015 is simply not the same world as the world when the club, be it a tennis club or another sports club, came into being. And whilst it might have been acceptable to have times when your tennis club and your tennis courts were quiet and were only being used at certain times, whereas that might have been acceptable 15-20 years ago, we need to recognise now that with the number of people and the number of needs and aspirations of other sports and other communities, those spaces could be much better used, and close attention to that doesn't mean to say that you're going to lose your identity. Now, not every club will be the same. What's worked well for Beachhaven might not work for another club. It's all about how busy that club is at certain times of the day, at certain times of the week, and analysing where other community groups could use that, whether it be for futsal or for other activities. So in terms of tennis going forwards, we need to recognise that a tennis club may well change the way it appears in the next 15-20 years. Now, for some clubs they may continue just as they are doing. If their memberships are high, their court usage is really solid, then that club may stay exactly as it is and has been for many years. But for other clubs, they may recognise opportunity that lies outside their sphere of thinking,